Do you want to become a talk show host? Do you have a great idea? Passionate World Talk Radio is currently looking for podcast hosts for our internet talk radio station. Please email us at pwrnetworkllc@gmail.com with your name, email address, cell phone number, and podcast topic. In return, you will receive a 3-minute intro on air to a live audience about your podcast. Remember, just email us your name, email address, and your podcast topic, and in return, you will receive a free 3-minute intro on the air. How cool is that? Welcome to Passionate World Talk Radio. Educate, enlighten, entertain.
Welcome to Passionate World Talk Radio. Educate, enlighten, and entertain. I'm Shannon Zeeman, and thank you for joining us today on the most important 15 minutes of your day, where we share expert information on safety and preparedness that you can use in your everyday life. Most people don't get to see the life of a police officer, and even more live it. I have had the honor to be married to my best friend, an amazing police officer for almost 20 years. Through his 25-year career in law enforcement, I have seen the ups and downs of his job through Troy's eyes. I thought it would be a great opportunity to have him join us today and touch on a few topics that we as civilians might have the wrong perception of or never even thought of. So thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so we were actually out to dinner with one of my really good friends, and this is where the idea of this podcast came up. And she was telling us the story about she pulled up to the front of her child's school, that they're on hybrid now and things look a lot different from dropping kids off. And where she dropped her child off was actually on the street, and she got pulled over by a police officer. And she told us that she felt like the police officer left on her lights during the stop and everything to kind of tell everybody around, like, hey, look at me. I'm doing my job. I'm giving a mom a ticket for dropping off her kids at school. And, she truly didn't understand why you guys leave your lights on and do certain things during protocol. And Troy went to explain this, and it was a complete enlightenment for her. So why don't you share a little bit about that with everybody here?
Yeah. So, your friend tells me that, you can tell her perspective right away that she believed that the officer seemed to be making a big deal of this traffic stop and
almost embarrassing her.
Yeah. And that's kind of what it is, right? Like, we understand as officers that you get pulled over, and if nobody sees you and nobody's around that you feel like can judge you, then that is going to give you some sense of, well, nobody's going to know anyway. And I might argue the fact, but the reality is I'm not too embarrassed at this moment. But in front of your school, there's a lot of people that go to school with your kids that are going to judge you. They're going to say things. They might even bring it up, like what happened, and you don't want to talk about that. I mean, if you did something wrong, or even if you don't believe you did something wrong, it's going to appear that you did something wrong. And so it's a huge thing. And even as adults, that embarrassment and that judgment from our community is tough. It's tough for all of us to take. So she brought up the fact that she believed that this was more of a, hey, look at me. I'm stopping this mom, and I'm going to give her a ticket, and I'm making an example of her. Right. And in theory, we all understand, all officers understand this perspective, but the reality is we leave our lights on, and we have a black and white car, and we do things that you might not understand, but it's really a safety issue. And the safety issue is because let's just say that the person gets out of the car and wants to fight us. We get into a fight, and we put out an officer needs help call. The next officer that gets there, we want them there as fast as possible. And the lights going on a police car is something we look for. A black and white vehicle is something we look for. Just because I put out walk and don't walk street doesn't mean I'm actually at the corner of walk and don't walk. It just means I'm in that area. So for us to respond, we want to get there very quickly. It's very high stressed. It's, the anxiety and officers responding is up. So all of that comes together, and we really want to get to that position of that partner officer as fast as possible.
Right. Or
an analogy of it would be like if your kid called you on the phone and said, "Hey, I'm at walk and don't walk, and somebody's trying to hurt me." If they had a flashlight in their hand and you were driving down the street as fast as possible to get there to save your kid, and you could see them and get there 3 seconds faster, that's what we're thinking about.
Right.
You don't want to leave your kid out there 3 seconds longer than they have to be.
Yeah.
And we don't want to leave our partners out there 3 seconds faster or longer than they have to be. And these are one of the reasons why we have such an identification on our car, so that we know where we're going and what we're doing. And also the public knows who it is. We don't want the public to think that you are in a fight with some person that is trying to kidnap you.
Right.
You're hoping that officer is legitimate, and you're looking at it going, yeah, there's an officer involved.
Right. And, like, I know some people are going to think, well, it's a mom in front of a school. They're not going to fight you. It's the same thing that we, teach our kids. Like, it is going to sound funny, but when you go to the bathroom, you wash your hands. It doesn't matter what you've done in the bathroom. You have to do the right steps to stay in that repetition, to do it correct every time. So it's not that the police officers are saying that, this person is going to fight me, but they never know when it's going to happen. So they follow protocol for every stop.
Right. And that protocol, we try to stay consistent, because then we hope that there's less injuries to everybody involved. But the other thing is, like, everybody knows, everybody's seen it in the news. I've been in this job for over 25 years. It's not always mom that we stop at the schools. There might be a person who's trying to hurt a kid. There might be a female who's trying to kidnap somebody.
Right.
Sometimes we don't know who we're stopping. And you guys see it in the news constantly that officer involved in this, and they didn't know that this person was that bad at the time of the stop. Later on, and hindsight's always great, 2020, but the reality is when they're stopping you, we don't really know who you are, what things you're capable of.
Right.
So we treat everyone with that protection so that we don't have to worry as much on those stops. And those things give us a little bit of stress lowering than if we didn't do it correctly. Our stress would be incredibly through the roof. And but officers are human. We are scared a lot of times. So those tactics that we use keep us from being too scared, hopefully.
So that's a great point, and it's a great insight to, what we as civilians might not even contemplate. So another comment that I hear a lot, because I'm a mom and I'm at school and staff, are a lot of people that are asking, why are the officers here harassing the parents at pickup or drop off at the schools? Like, we're just parents trying to get our kids. Why are they bothering us?
Right. So, and that's completely an understanding that we understand as officers. It's a perception that we're over there just looking for tickets and trying to harass, if you will, the parents. But the number one thing that pushes us to those schools on drop off and pickup are the schools. The schools call and they complain about the parents constantly doing either violating the law or doing something that they believe is dangerous towards the kids. And so they will call the police departments and say, we've tried to handle this with the parents get mad at us, and they continue their bad behavior. And those kind of things is what then our supervisors, whether it's a lieutenant, a sergeant, a captain, whatever it is, then go and tell the officers, you're going to be assigned to this and you have to go out there and do your job. Whether we agree on it or not is not the issue. I have a job to do and I will do that job. But the reality is that it's difficult to take those orders and go out there and give these moms and dads who are dropping off their kids trying to rush to work these tickets. But without that, maybe the kids aren't as safe. Right. But we have to do our jobs. And the vast majority of officers, we didn't become officers to go to schools and give moms and dads tickets who are dropping off their kids. That's not what we're here for. And it's not something we believe in. But traffic enforcement is a big deal with schools, and we have to go do that. And just like your job, other people's jobs, if your boss tells you to go do something, you have to go do it. And that's just the way it is.
And you guys don't want to give tickets, but you do want to make it a safe environment for children and their parents. So it's kind of like a, torn back and forth. Like you don't want to start these parents' days off right or wrong or end it, but it is following orders, but also, for parents to keep in mind that these police officers are there trying to make it as safe as an environment for our children, because if something goes wrong, they don't want that on their backs either. So it's following the rules and making it safe.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Traffic enforcement is important, but again, it's not something we all signed up to do,
right?
But we understand the importance of making sure that schools are taken care of. And if the administration has some complaints, then we will try to go and help them with those.
Right. So just remember, they're not there to try and ruin your day. They're there trying to help the schools, make it safe for you. So let's go back to the stop that I was telling you about, that I was telling everybody about my friend. And she mentioned that, she didn't agree with the officer, with the officer's perception of what the violation that she did. My girlfriend felt, that she shouldn't have been pulled over. But even though she didn't agree with the officer, she was very respectful with the officer. She complied with the officer's orders, and she signed, for the ticket, and then drove off. And her kid was her younger son was in the car. And she said, not only did she want to just give the respect to the officer that was trying to do their job, right? But she also wanted to show the importance to her son of respecting an authority figure and not causing a problem. And explained to her son, like, okay, if I don't like it, then I can fight this correctly with the courts. And so I think it's really great how she put in perspective that it was the importance to show her son how, even if you don't agree with something, you don't disrespect the person that's giving you their direction, and didn't disrespect the officer, and had that great conversation with her son in the car.
Yeah, and I applaud her for that. The authority figures, right? I mean, what we see on the news constantly is the fact that fighting police is sometimes a good thing. Being out there disrespecting authority figures in all different aspects. We see it even in classrooms where the kids are disrespecting the teachers, and then the school resource officers who get there. These are things that we have to teach our parents or our kids not to do. If we show our kids that disrespecting authority figures is okay, then how can we expect them to respect us?
Yeah.
How can we expect them to say, you know what, the rules that you set, I don't like, but I'm going to follow them anyway. If you teach me that if I don't like a rule, I can fight and physically fight or verbally fight it right there at the moment of time, then that's what they're going to do to you. And that is something that as they get older, it's going to be hard in school. It's going to be hard in college. It's going to be hard in their life as an adult. One of the things that we've always heard our whole life is that rules were meant to be broken. And I don't agree with that. I think rules are meant to evolve. I think rules are meant to change, but evolving and changing those rules, we in our society, our community has a way of doing that. And fighting and committing violence and disrespecting people, and those ways are not productive. It's not a way to do things. I know some people think that is, but it's really not a way to do things. So her showing her kid this in the manner, it's a great lesson for him to understand, him or her, whoever the kid was, to be able to say, okay, we follow the rules, we comply with the things, we get the ticket, we go to court, and we let the courts decide on the perspectives. And that's what tickets are. The tickets are judgments. Tickets are perspective, and we have to understand that.
Right. And it was great too, because you taught her how she could go and evaluate and find the information to show her perspective on it. So when she goes to court, she's educated and she can fight for herself. So I think that was really great. So what's the real reason the officers give tickets?
Well, the political reason is for safety, right? Everybody says we give tickets to save lives and keep people safe. And that's absolutely true. I don't disagree with that. But in most cases, as street cops are, not the motor officers, but as street cops go out there and they give tickets to do some traffic enforcement to, try to safeguard things. But really, one of the things that I can touch on that's very, very important to street cops, and it's from day one till the time we retire, is that we use these ticket courts to practice being comfortable in court. It's very stressful to be in court and to testify. So as young cops, we are extremely stressed. We have anxiety, up the wall. If you've ever been in court and you ever testified on something, whether it's ticket or something else, you can imagine how stressful that is. Well, cops are the same way. We are very stressed. We don't get this training that makes us just great testifiers. We have to learn. So one of the ways we learn is to give out tickets. Mm-hmm. We go to court, we testify to those. Win or lose, it doesn't really matter. What matters more is that we're getting that training, and that training is going to make us comfortable when we have a case that we want to win in criminal court, where people are the big cases. People got hurt, people got killed. We want to win those cases because we don't want to have people out there hurting people, and then we don't do our job correctly, and they get released because we didn't testify well. And if you've ever been on a jury, you're going to see some officers, and those officers, they're not going to testify well. They're not going to be comfortable. They're not going to articulate. And you're going to look at them and go, I don't know if I'm going to judge in their favor. But then on the other side, you're going to see officers who are very articulate. They're comfortable, still stressed, but they're doing their job correctly. And then as a juror, you're going to look at that and say, okay, well, this person knows what they're doing. And that's important for us as officers to make sure that those big cases are settled correctly, and that we can stop people from getting hurt.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting how you explain that, as it's your stepping stones. Like for me as a civilian, I've never had to testify in court, but what I've done that's very stressful is job interviews. And so, when you're younger, you start, maybe for a fast food restaurant, mm-hmm. And so that's where you're in essence, that's our civilian way, how you're doing in traffic in everything, traffic court interviews.
Right.
That's our way of learning those stressful steps. Interviewing is the only thing I could equate for it. And as we move up, right, we get better and better at interviewing for the bigger and bigger jobs. So the bigger and bigger cases.
Right.
So I think that's
exactly.
Yeah.
That's a good analogy of it.
Oh, thanks. I try on that. So anyways, I really, really think this is just so great. And you giving us the perspective of how cops think. You understand the cops just not trying to harass you, but they have a job to do, and they're trying to keep themselves safe, and they're trying to keep you safe. So I really want to thank you for spending the time and sharing that with us.
You're welcome. Well, thanks for having me on. It was a good, I liked the conversation on this one because it was a good person who got a ticket, and 90+% of the people that get tickets are great people. We all make mistakes, and that happens, but the way we handle it and the way we learn from it is important.
Right. And just remember, police officers are human too. So, because I love my little human officer.
Oh yeah.
So I just want to let you know, I want to thank you so much for listening to Passionate World Talk Radio. And this podcast is going to be our last one for the season.
Yeah.
And I just want to thank you so much for being here with us on this road of educating. I would really love to thank everybody that came, my experts that came and shared their knowledge and helping us stay safe. And I look forward to our season 2, where we bring in more experts. We get to find new ways to keep ourselves safe and be prepared. And I'd love to thank Passionate World Talk Radio for giving us a shot at this and helping me run with my idea for the most important 15 minutes of your day. So thank you so much. I hope you enjoy it. And remember, with knowledge, you have the power.
Do you want to become a talk show host? Do you have a great idea? Passionate World Talk Radio is currently looking for podcast hosts for our internet talk radio station. Please email us at pwrnetworkllc@gmail.com with your name, email address, cell phone number, and podcast topic. In return, you will receive a 3-minute intro on air to a live audience about your podcast. Remember, just email us your name, email address, and your podcast topic, and in return, you will receive a free 3-minute intro on the air. How cool is that? Thank you for listening to Passionate World Talk Radio. You can listen to this program all over again by going over to https://passionateworldtalkradio.com. You can also hear it on Spotify, Spreaker, Amazon Alexa, AMFM247.com every Tuesday evening between 8 and 9 p.m. YouTube, Facebook, Facebook Live, LinkedIn, and all the other podcast directories one can find on the internet.